Hey everybody, how you doing today? I am going to go through some various Photoshop tools today. If you have any questions about anything, as you've been working through Photoshop, playing around with it, let me know. I can go through that as well today, but I have some things planned. And I am going to show you guys some different things. I've got like 3 to 5 different things I want to show you guys today, and I'm going to do some more on Thursday. So Thursday I'll be here at this time too. Sorry I'm a couple minutes late. I literally just had a delivery guy come at like 1:58, right as I was ready to get on. So I had to go out and get the sign and help him out. So, all right. So here's what we're going to do. Okay, so if you have questions, if you have specific questions, I see some people have asked some stuff. Ask me for specific things so I know what direction to go in right now, so that I can help you out. But I'm going to show you guys a couple things today that I wanted to just kind of go over. Some things that I talked a little bit about last week, or just some things that I've been noticing people have been asking me questions on lately and have maybe not been able to watch me do it. So I just want to be able to do that. Okay, so the first thing, just real quick, so this is just review. When you're starting a new image, so let me start a new image here and make sure you can, oh, of course it's scrolling over here. When you're starting a new image, always make sure, as I mentioned earlier, that you have pixels selected. Use pixels, because if you use inches and select like 800 here, you're going to have a monster size image that you won't really be able to work with. And that's like, we're talking like 800 divided by 12 is a lot of feet. So make sure that you have the correct thing picked. Always make sure you got sizes selected, resolution selected, and color mode selected. And one of the things I wanted to mention with color mode is, I like to say, like, as you're using a printer, use CMYK. As you're using an image on the screen, use RGB. But to be honest with you, in most cases, unless you're printing something professional, it really doesn't make a difference. I mean, most of you have probably printed in RGB before. Like if you just printed an image from the computer for like a birthday card, or like just something for fun at home, it's probably been an RGB image and it's looked fine and you've never noticed a difference. So just know that it's really like for professional printing, when you need, like, if I was going to print this color blue and it had to be this color, I would have to make sure it was correct, because, if this was RGB and I printed it CMYK, the blue might be off a bit. And that's where this kind of thing can really, really, really make a difference. Okay, so let's get into it. Let me show you some stuff. I don't need to create a new image, actually. I'm not going to do that. So let me pull up the stuff that I do want to show you. So let's see. I've got some images here I want to work with. And I'm going to show you guys how to do some different things. So one of the things I will say as I'm doing this, so let me take a picture of Hunt. This is a picture of my son. He is 5. He literally just turned 5. And where's my picture of him? Oh, here it is. He literally just turned 5. The kid's a very, like, compared to my other kids, he's very like theatrical. Like he puts on a show. So you can tell from this picture, like we said, pose for a picture, and he puts on a show. He's very like a show kid. This was the 4th of July pick, and he randomly picked out a USA flag bodyboard last year that's now fallen apart. It broke last weekend. It's completely destroyed. But and I do see some people have typed some things here. Let's see. I'll just make sure I can read everyone's chat here. But so anyway, yes, he just turned 5, and we're debating sending him to kindergarten or not, because he's really young. He just turned 5, and a lot of his friends are turning 6. And with the whole coronavirus thing, it's like, do you send a kindergartner to? We're going to find out today in North Carolina at 3 p.m. what's going on. But do you send a kindergartner if it's online? Like, this kid thinks that sheep are blue because they're blue in Minecraft. Like he needs to be in a classroom. And that's what I get for letting him play video games. Okay, but I want to do a couple things with this picture. So, this is a cool picture. I like the picture, but there are some things I don't like about it. So, You know, if I look at this picture, I say Hunt stands out, great. But the background almost looks like it's one color, like blurred together. And if someone doesn't have great vision, they might not see, even really notice the background because it's so bright. He's just popping out so much. His boogie board and shorts and shirt are just popping out so much, in his hair. Everything's just popping out here. So what I want to do is I want to change the scenery. And I have a couple images where I can show this. And there are, so one of the things I want to mention, so I'm going to change this picture. I'm going to show you how to like take an image like this and change different pieces of color. Now, one of the things I will say is that there are literally, I can just think off the top of my head, 4 different ways to change the color of an image. 4. So if you go into Photoshop and you're looking at like YouTube videos to figure out like how to do something like this, there are going to be, every tutorial is going to be different because there are just so many ways to do it. And there are so many versions, and the Mac and PC version look different too. And sometimes I'm on the Mac and sometimes I'm on the PC. And I have like 4 different versions of Photoshop on my computer. I have 2015, 18, 19, and 20 all installed on my machine. So people, it's kind of funny. Like, and you know, they just change little, I mean, honestly, as I've mentioned, Photoshop has not changed. Hasn't been big, huge changes since I was using it in 97. There's like little things like they added a button here, took away a button here, changed where something is, but like the overall look and feel and functionality of the software has remained exactly the same. So what I'm going to show you right now is I'm going to show you what I believe is the easiest way to do what I want to do. But there are other ways. So I'm going to show you how to change the color of something using the paintbrush. Now, I could change the color of something using a mask tool. I could select everything. There are numerous ways for me to change the color. Okay, before I edit an image, what's the first thing I want to do? First thing I want to do before I ever edit an image is I want to select all, and I do Control-C, Control-V. Control-C, Control-V. Why? Because we never work from the background layer. Never want to work from the background layer. And just so everyone knows, I'm using the 2020 version of Photoshop in this video today. I just picked that one. That's the one I clicked. They actually changed the logo. I didn't even realize that until the other day. Someone said something about the new version. I didn't realize they changed the logo a bit. I mean, they didn't change it a lot. They just made it like rounded corners. But it's still a logo change that they haven't done in 10 years or something like that. So all right, so I've created my first image here, and now what I want to do is I want to change, first thing I want to do is I want to change the color of the beach. I'm going to make that pop out a little more, and then I want to change the color of the ocean, and then I want to change the color of the sky. So I've broken this image down into 3 different sections that I want to change the color. Now, I could just change the color of the whole entire image. I can go to Image, Adjustments, and I can click Play with all of these different things. I can play with my brightness. I don't think this picture needs any brightness. This picture is really, really, really bright already. I don't think it needs any brightness. Where'd my brightness go? Oh, everything's going to my main computer every time I pull up an image. But this picture is really bright. I mean, brightening this just literally makes it, if anything, bringing the brightness down brings down some of that pop that he originally has. But I think the contrast does a much better job of bringing the color out a little bit. But I don't think I really want to play with either of these too much. Maybe just a little bit. I'll click OK there. And we can see the difference. I can undo, redo. Just a little bit. Just to give it a little touch there. But you can see there are 3 components of this image that I need to change. I need to change the sky. I need to change the ocean. And I need to change the beach. So I'm going to do each of those separately. I'm going to first do the beach. So there are, as I said, there are a couple ways to do this. I'm just going to really quickly use the magnetic lasso. I could create a mask. I could, either way, no matter what I'm doing, I'm going to accomplish the same end goal. So that's one of the things, like even though there are 5 ways to do something, there are how do you get to the end goal is what's important. And my recommendation to you is maybe to learn several different ways and kind of pick what works best for you. I'm a big fan of selecting. I believe selecting is everything in Photoshop, whereas other people believe that you need to use masks for everything. And the funny thing is, they're both selecting. It just, masks are a different way to select. I don't know. I feel like whenever I'm working with them, I feel like I'm doing the exact same thing. So I don't ever feel like I'm doing something different. Let's zoom out one more time. All right, and I just push Control plus and Control minus to do that zoom. That's all I'm doing to do that. Okay, so I am gonna select the beach, and I'm gonna do this quick because you guys don't have 2 hours to sit here and watch me do something. So we're gonna do this pretty quick. It's not gonna be perfect at all, but that's completely fine. Can't even make the edges fine. Come on, Photoshop, do better than that. All right, so we have our beach selected. We're gonna imagine that I spent a while and perfected that and really made the beach perfect. And you know what, I can do just a little better job. So I selected my polygon lasso, and I'm gonna make sure I push the shift key and it plus, because I'm gonna add to my selection. So I'm gonna add to my selection just to get these outer edges here. Just so it's, I mean, just to make it a little better really quick. And I'll add to it right here. And I'll do one subtraction of the foot. That is the Alt key. There we go. Okay. It's not perfect, but it's okay. I can subtract this to, or add. Remember, I hold down Shift to add to my selection. Okay, so we've got our image selected. In fact, if I pushed backspace right now, we can see what I would backspace. Now, from here, I could do a bunch of different things. So when you have something selected, like I could go into image and I could click, I can change the color, I could change black and white, and notice it only changes black and white of my selection. So the difference between what I'm doing right now using the selection tool versus a mask is with a mask, you actually use your paintbrush to select. That's the big difference. We don't need to do that. Oh, here's the menu that popped up. Let's cancel that. All right, so there are a couple ways that now that I have what I want to change the color of selected, there are like 10 different ways that I can change the color. So let me show you 2 different ways to do it. So I'm already showing you this menu up here, so that's probably the easiest way for me to look at like my levels, my hue, my color balance. I could play with any of these and start to look at them and see there's not going to be anything in my levels. This will just get rid of some of the white. This will just get, no, we don't need to do that. You can see I'm just playing around. I can play around with my exposure levels, which I'm not going to use for this. Exposure is just going to make it like really white. You know, when like you're overexpose the photo and take a picture of it and like it gets like really, really, really white. We don't need to do that. But we can play around with some of these colors. And you can see there's like auto tone. I've never used those features. That's not what I want to do. I'm a big fan of playing with the actual colors. Here we go. No, we don't need any saturation. We add a little color. Nah. But you can see the first thing that I'm doing here is just playing with the colors. So if I wanted to add a little more red to this, oh, I don't like that too much, but a little warm is good over the blue, and probably a little yellow. That's actually not bad. So here is the original color. Here is what I've done. Original, what I've done. Original, I mean, this is a big difference. That's the original color. It almost looks black and white, like your eyes trick you when you see it. And that's what I've done. So I actually like that a lot, but I'm not going to use that because I want to show you, well, let's keep it, actually. I'm going to show you the other way to do it as well. Well, you know what? We'll do the ocean the other way, or the sky. That way you get to see the whole thing. All right, so we've changed the color of the background. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to do the ocean and the sky. Let's just move up the image. Let's do the, let's see, let's do the ocean. I just got my polygon lasso selected, which is fine. It's not magnetic, but we're not trying to be perfect right now. Got that. Now I have to hold down the shift key to select the rest of this because I'm adding to my selection. And I'm going to show you the other way to change color here. One of the other ways. And let's get this little triangle that he's got going on here. There we go. So if we were to delete, we've got pretty much the whole ocean deleted. That was just a little test to see. And just to delete, I just pushed backspace and undid it using Control Z. Okay, so how do we change the color of the ocean? So one of the ways to change it is doing exactly what I just did. In fact, I would go into adjustments, color balance, and I could make it more blue. I could change both blues, especially like this nice aqua color that we get in Wrightsville Beach. I mean, this is way overdone right now. I made it fake, but, you know, just a little bit. But that's not what I want to do. I want to show you guys the other way to do it. And if I was using a mask, this is actually the way that I would do it. So all that I'm going to do, I am going to select the eyedropper tool right up here. If you don't see the tool ever, guys, make sure you click like the little triangle at the bottom to pull it up. And if you're ever missing a tool, right here, these 3 dots, just click them. Where are all my tools popping up? And here are all the possible tools that you can get. And then you can add them. Like your paint, like I was showing, someone was asking the other day how to use they were trying to use the paint bucket and I had to show them how to do it. But it's simply the G, you can press G for a shortcut or like pull it up this way. It's just not in the main menu. Photoshop just has so many tools that they've organized it like this now. So it's just another way. All right, so I'm going to, that's just in case you're ever missing a tool. I'm going to select my paintbrush tool or my eyedropper and I'm going to select the color. So what I'm trying to do right now is I'm trying to select the color of the ocean. Now notice how there are multiple colors here. As I zoom in, I see a darkish like green blue color, a lighter green blue color, and a white green blue color. I'm going to select the middle so that I'm not too dark, not too light. And notice as soon as I press this little square right here, my foreground color in the lower left-hand corner has changed to that color. All right, now let's zoom out so we can see the whole image. Okay, so as soon as I did that, notice up here, my color has changed. So this dot is the color that I've seen. Now I'm gonna look at this chart and add a little bit of color because I'm trying to highlight. I'm not trying, you cannot like, I can make this like a red ocean, but it's not gonna look correct. It's not gonna look real. It's really difficult to do that. I want to add I'm trying to highlight it right now, trying to add a little bit of color to make it look realistic from what it was. So I'm just going to pick a little bit out here like that. I am going to select my paintbrush brush tool. I'm going to first look at my brush size. I think that's way too small. I want to do this pretty quick. Oh yeah, that's huge. That's way too huge. Okay, hold on a second. Let's see. There we go. That's fine. Okay, so we got our brush tool size. I need to select an opacity. So 100% is completely changing the color. 100%. So that's not what we want to do, right? That doesn't look right. Right. So I'm going to pick like something around like, so the better thing to do is to try it out. So let's say I pick 5% and I try it and hey, I don't see a difference. I might try 10%. Now, one of the things I want to let you know, so let me just show you this actually. If I pick 50%, you can clearly see the difference there. The more that I scroll over this, it's not adding any more color to the image because I have my mouse held down. As soon as I let go of my mouse, which I've just done, and do it again, now I'm adding a second layer of color. So you have to be careful that how much you press the mouse, like how often you do it. So like my first layer here, I'm going to hold my mouse throughout this whole entire thing one time. I'm going to actually put it more at like 20%. 19% is perfect. I'm just giving it a little bit of color. There, we've given it a little bit of, I've given it 20% color. So let's look at before, after. Before, after. Perfect. I just gave it a nice little tint. Now, next part, the sky. Oh, I see that. Someone just mentioned that when I'm using tools in the upper part, my image is hiding it. So let me just show you, let me just move that. I can go over my layers here, it's fine. So all that I did when I was changing that color at the top here, it wasn't a tool, it was just, I was just on my colors and I just moved my color. I'll actually do it again right now just so you can see it when I do the sky. So let's just do that. Make it simple. And thank you for pointing that out to me. Okay. And I'm gonna show it again right now, exactly what I did up there. So let's do that. So, okay, so back to the sky. I gotta select my sky. Gotta select the sky, simple. All right. Notice when I use like my polygon lasso, I always put it like out here because if you can't find the dot, notice when I scroll over it, the dot forms, that's how you stop it from being selected. You don't want to lose where you were selecting. So I always put it somewhere like pretty far out to try to make it easy on myself. And obviously we're totally not trying to make this perfect. I'm trying to show an example. We've got our sky selected. Let's test it. Delete. Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to change the color of the sky. Now, I'm going to do exactly what I did during the last image, just so you guys can see what I did there. So all that I did is so first of all, eyedropper again. I'm just going to pick a color in the sky. I'm going to go down here actually and select from down here. I noticed the sky has like a little pattern of clouds, but I'm still going to select down here anyway. And okay, so when I selected with the eyedropper, notice it's selected up here in my colors. I'm going to move towards the color that I want, which I want it to be brighter and more blue, just up here. So that I'm using the same like zone here. Like I'm not like, it's not up here in red. It's at the same exact kind of blue. So it's only going to give it a perfect little tint. So I've just selected a little up. I might go a little further. Now again, I'm going to select my paintbrush. Let's do a little more than 19. Let's do 25 this time. I'm going to go over my sky. All right, let's look at the before and after. Before, oops, after. Okay, let's deselect everything. Let's zoom out. Okay, so now here's our image. So I'm going to show you the before and after of the image, but let me just talk about the image first of all. So you can now clearly see the ocean beach, and sky. They're three separate things. Remember when I first started this image, they looked like basically almost one thing. If you were just glancing really quick, it almost just looked like one thing. Now they look like three separate things. Now, I've overdone it. I've purposely overdone it so that you could see clearly the example, because it's very difficult when I'm sharing my screen for you to see color examples. Just like when it's different, just like when you print and it's a slightly different color blue, same thing happens when you're sharing a screen on a computer. So I've overdone it a bit on purpose so that you can see this color difference. All right. So realistically, I'd probably only have done each of these like 5 to 10%. Just a slight difference would have made a big difference in the photo. As you guys have edited your photos, you know, I've been looking at students in my class, your photos, and just looking at how you use like brightness techniques or adding blue light, getting rid of blue light, different things like that into your image, how just the slightest thing can change it. All right, so let's take a look at my image before and after. So here's the before, after. Before, after. All we've done is added some tint to the color. Just added some tint, some color to the photo, to the background. And even though I did a poor job of selecting, I could almost get away with this. I would need to fix this part in his feet. Otherwise, it's fine. For like Facebook, any kind of digital website, completely fine. It's much different when you're blowing it up and printing. But for digital images, you can get away with a lot of stuff doing it pretty quick. A lot of errors that people can never, you can't see the error. Especially like around his hair, like you can't tell. So this is the original. And this is me adding some color. Pretty cool to be able to do that. And how quick I did it without me even, and all I'm doing there, guys, is I'm selecting the layers. Just, I'll move myself again. All that I'm doing to show that is just selecting unselecting and selecting the layer. Pretty cool and pretty neat that you can like do that in like 1 second. Pretty cool stuff. I'm glad it's interesting that you can just do stuff like this so quick. I mean, it makes it very difficult to believe any photo you're ever seeing. And obviously for those of you that use like Instagram and stuff like that, there are already automatic filters that you use that do this kind of stuff for you. So a lot of us now, like, you know, when I used to teach a class about Photoshop like 10 years ago, people didn't even have smartphones really yet. It was kind of like a new thing still. And that was 2010. So like the iPhone and Android had only been out for like 2 years. A lot of people still had like the regular phones. So things like filters and stuff, people weren't familiar with they are, but I talk to any person, you know, especially like high school, 20-ish, 30-ish age about filters, and they know, everyone knows exactly what I'm talking about. It's awesome. It's kind of funny. Like we never did that. We're able to do that. I was never able to do that before. The terminologies now come, you know, common in society. Okay. Another image pull up. We talked about this last time during my last video, Incredible Hulk. And yeah, I totally did. Totally do have the. This is when someone was doing. So this was like a Facebook thing, and it was the. You're supposed to post your first picture on Facebook ever and your last pic on Facebook ever, and I did this as the Incredible Hulk to say. And I think my caption was like, this was my first picture ever, and my last pic ever was after I had just gotten out of the ocean, after they like spilled like some kind of toxic like radioactive fluid or something like that. Pretty funny. And you can tell how bad I did this, literally did this in 1 second. But the reason I bring this up is that I want to show how to change colors of things again, like more. So I changed like myself to be like Incredible Hulk green here. So let's pull up another image. And someone asked about 3D. I'm not going to pull up 3D today. I actually do all my 3D using tools like 3D Studio Max. I don't do 3D in Photoshop. Photoshop is not designed. It's not where I choose to create a 3D image. It's like me creating an image in Dreamweaver. Like when someone says, well, how do you change the image size in Dreamweaver? And I say, you don't. You change the image size in Photoshop and bring it into Dreamweaver. Same thing with 3D, which is interesting that they keep really pushing it here. And maybe I will show you just the basics of it, but I'm just not. I prefer to use a 3D piece of software and then pull it into Photoshop so that it's done correctly. Because there are a lot of disadvantages with the way Photoshop does 3D. Okay. So what I wanted to do here is I am going to change the color of my wife's hair. So she probably wouldn't be too happy if there was a picture of her up on the screen. So hopefully she doesn't come upstairs right now because she will not like that. But I always do her hair color, not mine, because it's very similar to like when you're dyeing your hair. Like I have dark colored hair, so I can't just dye my hair. I need to first dye my hair white and then add color to it. Whereas my wife, who has blonde hair, I can just add color to her hair. I'm still going to show you how to take the color out of her hair anyway, because I want to show you the right way to do it. But it's still still something I want to show you guys. Okay, so and the reason I'm showing you this, you should, based on what I just showed you, you should be able to do this. Because it's the same exact thing. I'm just trying to show you that like once you learn one little skill in Photoshop, there are 100 different ways to apply it to like all kinds of different scenarios. So once you learn all the basics of all these tools, like, oh, I understand how these are the selection tools and I understand how they work. Oh, this is crop and whatever. I know how to use text. I understand that there are these filters here, and I understand that there are these adjustments which you use all the time. You start to realize there are a bunch of tools, first of all, that you don't really use a lot. And there are other tools that you're going to use all the time. So you start to learn like, well, what do I like? What do I don't like? I never change this from anything, either RGB or CMYK. Like I never had to put something in grayscale. Like I'll just make it black and white, but I've never had to do that. So there are like little things like that that you just like don't ever do. And you start to realize that as you go through Photoshop. So I'm going to select all, copy, paste, because we don't work from the background layer. I know, boring, same thing, but we don't. Okay, so what I want to do is I need to select her hair. Now this is actually a scenario where a mask might be a better choice than selecting. I'm just going to use selecting, but a mask might be a better scenario. The difference between selecting and a mask is that selecting, I have to use these select tools, and whenever I use a mask, I actually use the paintbrush. That's all. It's really not like a big thing. I just have always preferred learn how to select. Selecting is super important. The better I get at this, the better I am at Photoshop. It's always just been like a philosophy of mine as I've used Photoshop throughout the years. And obviously, again, I'm doing this super quick just to show you guys how to do it. And I'm pretty sure I've shown a tutorial on how to do this. And I don't know if I did it this way or I used a mask in the tutorial. I recommend, I'll answer that question in a second. So I've selected her hair. I'm going to go to adjustments, black and white, make her hair black and white. Oh, she would really not like this picture. Actually, no, she probably would. I should actually send this to her. Let me deselect that, see what it looks like. So that's what she would look like with gray hair. She would actually like that because she was talking about dyeing her hair that color. So let me undo that selection. We can see I get rid of it. All right, so how do I add color to her hair? Same way as before. I can do it 10 different ways. I can add color here, I can paint on it, I can do whatever I want. I am going to go actually use one of these adjustments and go to, let's go to color balance. Let's pull it down here so you guys can definitely see it. And let's play around. That's like so pretend. There we go. It looks a little more real. And I've given her purple hair. I've got to send this picture to her. I'm going to send this to her just so she can see. I think she'll actually get a kick out of this. Let's see. Let's go to... So let me talk about saving. So we've changed the color of her hair, and now she has purple hair. So it's super. And notice I did this. One of the other things I'm trying to show you is I'm doing this in seconds. Just it literally didn't even take me a minute to do that. I mean, I was talking, so it took longer. But you can do this, and obviously I'm also not trying to select it really well and all that stuff, but you can do this stuff in seconds. It's so quick once you get the tool. So I'm going to go to export. I can save as legacy. I can export as whatever your preference is for. I can even just go to save as and just pick save as. Oh, I don't think I'm using legacy anymore. I think I've kind of transitioned from that, but I'm just going to save it as a JPEG. Let's do medium and save and just put it on my desktop. And I'm going to also send her a picture of herself with gray hair. And oh, I totally forgot to do this part of her hair. Well, that's okay. Okay, let's go to export, export as, and we'll just do the regular export as here. So I do it both ways. Okay, we got format, quality. Now we don't need that quality. Ooh, yeah, let's just keep it high, I guess. Let's click export. Click put it on the desktop. Click say, oops. There we go, we've saved it. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna, let's close that image there. We don't need this one open either. Okay, so let's see, someone asked a question. Do I recommend using an adjustment layer or just adjusting on the layer you're working on? It all depends. So one of the reasons that I don't work from the background layer, because besides the fact that it's locked, is that if I mess up, I can always just recopy the image. And when I'm showing like a quick example in here, so someone asked, do you recommend using a different layer, an adjustment layer, or adjusting on the layer you're working on? So, you know, there are a number of thoughts around that. So first of all, I always work from a new layer. If I'm doing a quick demonstration for you guys in class, I create one layer and that's it. I don't play around with it. I don't use any of the adjustment features. I don't adjust the layer whatsoever because I'm just trying to show an example. Now, when I'm talking about adjusted, so secondly, whenever I'm working in Photoshop and I'm really trying to do something, I'd probably make a new layer of my image. Like for this one, when I did this part and then this part and then this part, I probably would have made a new layer for each one of those pieces. So this image, when I edited 3 different things, the sand, ocean, and sky, I would have actually had created 4 total layers. I would have had my base layer, which is my background, layer 1, which would have been like beach, layer 2 would have been ocean, and layer 3 would have been sky. So I would have had 4 total layers when I did it. Now, when I talk about layer adjustments or adjusting a layer, there are a few things I can do. I can go to image adjustments and I can adjust each one of these if I want to. There's also another way to get image adjustments by double clicking on my layer, pulling up my layer style. And then there are all kinds of different, let me pull that so you guys can see it. All kinds of different adjustments I can make here as well. So let me go through that again. I can go to layer or image adjustments and mess with all of these. I can also double click on my layer and pull up my layer style. Now this allows me to do things, let me just see where the video is so I'm not, okay. This allows me to do things like I can add or take away colors here. This is actually not gonna look really good. I'm gonna show you guys a different example of this another time. So, and I have videos where I do show how to use this tool. This is a terrible image to show how to use this tool. And then I have all of my different styles here that you can use up here in layer style, which are things like if I'm playing with text, like add a stroke, I can add like a stroke to an image or anything like that. Let me use some of those and play around with those a little bit to talk about when I actually prefer to use some of those. Some of you are really good with that. I've been looking at some of the images. You guys, some of my students have selected, and some of you guys have done some really cool stuff with the images. But like stroke is one of my favorite things to do, especially when I like create text or something like that. Stroke creates like a border around my image. So let's say like I wanted to create some text here. And my text is really, really tiny right now. It's 16 points. So let's select it and make it much bigger. Let's even make it bigger than that. Oops. My son's name is Huntington, but we call him Hunt. So we'll just keep it at that. We'll keep it Hunt. All right. So what I can do here, I'm going to change the color of my text. I'm going to make it white. I just double clicked it. And I notice I had to go back onto the... Notice every time you create text, it creates a new layer. I had to go back, select my text tool again, select the text, select the color. Color picker came up on my other screen. I'm going to put white here. That's not perfectly white, so I'm just going to type... I know the code for white is simply FFF 3 times or 6 to be sure. So I'm just going to type OK. I've now selected white text. So what I want to do to this is I want to add a stroke to this image. So I'm going to go to Layer, Layer Style, and I can add all kinds of cool different things. So I'm just going to click any of these actually because it'll just pull up the all the options. That layer style that I was on before. Notice, remember, I double clicked on my layer and this came up. I click layer style and this comes up. So as I said, there are like 10 ways to get to everything in Photoshop. So stroke is simply an outline. It's just the outline of the text. And I'm going to click the size. I want this to be on the outside. And I can play with the outline. So it makes the text, you know, I made it white. You couldn't really see that. I add a different color and it makes it very clear that it's here. I really like this. I'm a fan of stroke around text a lot on like presentations and stuff because it helps me like really clearly make sure that the users can see it. But if we get rid of the stroke, we can add like a shadow. I probably wouldn't add a bevel and emboss. Makes it 3D. Gives it like that 3D look. I think that was like a really cool look a long time ago. I don't use it really too much. I use stroke a lot. They're like outer glow, drop shadow. Outer glow is very similar to stroke. Let me go on the options here for it. Give it a lot of spread and some size. You can see it's very similar to stroke. Just gives it a little different of a feature. We've got drop shadow, which is simply just a shadow. You can change the direction of the shadow. Bunch of different neat options that you can just sit here and play around with all day to make something look nice. I'm a big fan of stroke. It's one of the features that I've been using more and more as I play with text and stuff. I think it's a really nice, quick effect. But I think that's the basic stuff I wanted to cover today. Let me just look and see if there's anything else I really want to talk about. I mean, I can change more stuff. I think that's what I wanted to talk about today. I mean, I can change more images. I can show you. This is actually the one I made a video on the, taking things out of an image. This was the image. And that was one thing, just one other thing I wanted to talk about. So when you're taking something out of an image, it's so much easier when the image has such good contrast like this. When you're trying to take like a detail out of an image, like let's say I was trying in an image like to get rid of my arm, but keep me there. Like it doesn't make sense unless I did it. It'd be, it's a lot more difficult than like getting rid of one of these birds. So it's just something I wanted to talk about as you work with selecting and modifying images and playing around with them, that it's not simple to do that. It's not simple to get things out of an image that truly belong there. And I think what I'm going to talk about on Thursday is I'm really going to get into a little more, you know, I've been talking about these tools and stuff, but I want to get into a little more of some of the, you know, ways that I divide interfaces up and the slice tool. I think I want to go through that and answer any questions on the slice tool and things that I do as I'm creating an interface. Like, how does that, just some things that I follow as like I'm designing like a new website, or I'm designing like my background for art and Articulate or a Captivate presentation, or you know, piece of e-learning. Like, what are things that I think about and how do I do that and why do I do that? You know, as I said earlier, someone asked like about like 3D, and I said, oh, I do that in a 3D tool. It's kind of the same thing like when I'm using like Articulate or Captivate. I just got a little error that my streaming is not great right now. The Wi-Fi isn't strong or something like that. But, you know, it's one of the reasons that, like, whenever I'm editing an image, I'm always in Photoshop or Illustrator. I'm not in Articulate or Captivate. I'm not in Dreamweaver. I'm in Photoshop doing it. So just pay attention to that. And if there are any questions that you guys have, you know, feel free to ask. Definitely, you know, willing to answer whatever and, you know, spend time on that. Or even just create videos on way. Like if someone sends me an email, sometimes it's just much easier for me to create a video on their question if it's a good thing that I don't have out there and someone else hasn't. One of the reasons I create a lot of my own videos on this stuff, it's one of the comments I get consistently from my videos is that I'll make videos that are like only 45 seconds. There's no explanation. I'm like, this is how you use this tool. Bam, that's it. That's the video. And a lot of people like that. Like they're not looking for a 10-minute explanation before I show how to use a tool that takes 30 seconds. They want like me to just show it. So I you know, I've tried to do that with my videos in Photoshop. Really just show how to use things. But there are just so many features here. Like it's impossible to cover everything. I mean, even in text, like we've got text, we've got all these different fonts to choose from. We've got, you know, how thick do we want it to be? We've got our alignment. We've got our color. Do we want it to be like zigzag or something? Like there are just so many different things that you can do with all of these different tools. And Photoshop keeps adding new tools or combining tools, or they really don't get rid of stuff a lot. They more or less add, or they change the name of something, which is really fun. But they do that stuff a lot. So it does happen, but overall, I mean, I think that's about it for today. I think that's everything I wanted to cover. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you learned something. I know I explain a lot. I know I have videos that explain all this stuff, but I do think it's good for me to walk through it with people as I'm like thinking and going through it, not like a prepared video that I've like planned out. It's nice for me to just kind of take some images, talk about some things I want to do, because maybe it's good that you watch me like fiddle around and be like, well, where is this right now? Like, you know, to see how I really work, just like you. You know, I'm not like, well, this is right here every single time. You know, sometimes I do have to find and remember like, well, where is that again? You know, where is select, modify? Oh, okay, that's right, it's right here. How do I do that feature again? Do I need to look that up? I mean, that's how you really work. You know, you never will remember all these features. You're going to go back and be like, oh, I know how to do that. I just need a quick like visual of how to do it. And then you're like, oh yeah, you know, you knew the tool you wanted. You knew you wanted the feather tool for whatever reason. You know, you wanted the feather. So just really quick, you know, you wanted the feather, select all, copy, paste. You know, you wanted to feather something in or out of an image. I always show this example with the circle. And, you know, you select modify, you can modify the border, make it bigger, smaller. I pick modify feather, which gives it that, like, I always call it like the yearbook effect, because it's what, like, you picture like someone's picture in like their yearbook. I could pick like 15 pixels is fine. I click OK and it does nothing. You know, I click backspace and it's just left like this hole on the screen. So what I do is I actually go to select inverse. And now I've selected everything but the center. click backspace and it's give like that, like if my photo was there, it'd be like the yearbook photo. I don't know. I don't know why I think of that. I picture like this like Hallmark card or like yearbook photo from like the 80s or 90s with the feather tool. Just a funny tool like that. But it does have a lot of actually really useful features. I love this tool a lot. It's a great feature. So question here. Someone asked specifically about an assignment in my class, but I'm looking for a mock web page and another edited images, and I'm wanting the same for computer and mobile, just different sizes. Yes, that is correct. So you're going to develop both mobile and regular. And remember, mobile and web are two different images. I mean, when I take a website, and I think I went over this in one of our videos actually, but just, if you want to look like that example where I did like test my web page on monitors. One of the things to really think about here is what does a good website look like? And I'll just use my website because I know it works differently on different monitors. So, for this kind of thing, you can take the same website and you can take the same website and make one version for the computer and one version for the mobile device. Or you can create two different things. There's no like right or wrong answer here. You can do either or. But notice that there are big differences. This is a website, multiple columns and rows. I have 2 columns right here. Cannot do that on a mobile device. And so when we're designing like e-learning for different devices, we have to think the same kind of thing. And we want to make sure that our e-learning that we're developing for a mobile device, whatever, if we're using software like Articulate or Captivate, I always mention those just because they're so common, they do a good job of creating a responsive site. That word responsive, I know I've said that like over and over again, but it simply means that the web page responds to the device the person's using. It's designed to look correctly on their device no matter what they're using. So like my web page, my whole menu is tucked away here when they're on a mobile device. And everything is scroll up and down. There are no multiple columns. It's changed. And the same thing goes for the computer. So start to think about that as you're designing this. Like what does it mean? You don't have to understand the background of something being responsive. You don't need to know the programming or code behind it. You need to understand, and the code and background behind it is CSS and JavaScript. But you don't need to worry about that right now. You need to worry about, what does this look like? What is the correct way for this to look when I'm designing something for a mobile device? What gives it a good look and feel, and what gives a website a good look and feel? The first time you develop a website and you're trying to design the look of it, most people, it looks pretty bad. And you slowly get better and better, and it's something that takes practice. So it's not something that I expect people to be able to do really well at first, because when you're first learning design, you're working on some fundamental things, not necessarily a great look. I mean, it's like an artist. Like the first time you paint something, it looks okay, but the 10th time you paint something, it looks like brilliant. And that's the same thing, like think about a sport. Like the first time, day one, you go try to run a mile, what happens? You're winded, you might not even make it the whole way. You might fall down because it's too much. But 6 weeks later, you tried to run a mile every day, and you zip through the thing. It's very similar to any kind of artistic or anything that takes skill. You can always keep improving. So, that's what I'm going to look at when I look at someone's first take at a website, someone's first take at a mobile. I'm looking, did you follow basic rules? Like, did you think about the rows and columns? Did you think about making this functional? I'm not thinking, oh, wow, this is professional level, because you're not there yet. anything else? All right, guys. I think that is it for today. We're at an hour, which is I hate trying to do these for more than that. That's like a sign that people have been watching too long. I've been talking. I know I talk a lot, so I need to stop myself. I give myself limits too. All right, I will be back on Thursday. I'm going to show, I'm not sure 100% all the stuff I want to show on Thursday, but I'll plan it out. I definitely want to talk about that design of the sites, mobile and web pages via Photoshop. Now I'll start to apply some of these techniques to that a little more. I've taken a look at buttons that you guys have created and stuff, and they're really good. I mean, I'm impressed by what I've been seeing. So I'll go in and try to give you guys a little more tips and hopefully help improve it a little bit. Otherwise, have a great day, y'all. See ya.